Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Let's see if this is working at all. Says I'm streaming. All right. So we're doing stuff. It sees I'm here. All right. So let's do this, I guess. Why not? So we're going to go into this is the first of I don't know how many. Maybe one, maybe two, maybe no more. Talks where I add a feature to a game that I've written called Typeracer. A little help from the open source community. The goal of Typeracer is pretty simple. If you've ever played, actually I'll show it first. If you ever played Typeracer.com. This is a terminal version. So quick demo of one of these. Let's see if I get the floor wiped with me. Maybe I'll do okay this time. The goal is to type out the passage basically as fast as possible. So, So, not my best time, but you get the gist. So, Typeracer, the version I'll be working on, is basically the same thing, a single player version for the terminal, as you can see. I apologize for the hammer keys. I do know I type a little loud, but I don't expect to be typing like this most of the time, only occasionally. Just a quick tour of the product, just so you can see how it looks on the outside first. I keep all my stuff in a directory called local share Typeracer, and it's all self-managed, so as a user, you don't have to worry about it. You jump into the game. It sets up the language packs, which are basically just a bunch of quotes, and then it gets you right in. You can exit, clear, you can do all sorts of stuff. Oh, it's not showing my mouse. Oh, man. I feel like that should be the default. Hold on. Properties. Oh no, it is showing. It must be showing my mouse. Yeah, okay, it is. So, these are all for control and something else. So you can do control C to exit, control U to clear the word, R to restart. So if you're not doing too good, just hit control R, get going again. And for next, pre for previous. So it's got some built-in history. It knows where you are. And then finally about, and this is just a boring about page. So not too much to see here. And that's the project on its own. So let's do a quick dive into the actual code base. It's written in pure Rust, and I wonder if I should do it in my terminal. It's in pure Rust without a whole lot of exciting stuff. So it's got some of the real basic libraries you'd expect. You see, I've got fun as a keyword. It's completely true. So we have TUI for the these for rendering the terminal. We have this for splitting for Unicode compatibility. I added Chinese support pretty recently. I got directories for XTG DIRs, Toml and Serde for deserializing, Get2 for downloading, rand for, we pick random files, so you gotta have something random, clap because it's clap for argument parsing, and these two for zipping lists. Oh, sorry, this is actually for persistent data. Nice. Okay. So let's go into how this works real quick. By the way, if you're not aware of what Rust is a systems programming language that the goal behind it is to be basically as safe as possible. You should almost never have race conditions. So when you're working with Rust, what ends up happening is that normally race conditions, you can do all sorts of race conditions. You have unsafe, you can have, how should I explain it? Basically, when working under normal code, you can have global variables, you can have variables that can be accessed by multiple threads, you can have references that are passed around that people expect to stay the same, but they end up not. And so you get these things called race conditions where you might expect one value to be the same or to be changed at a certain point, and it isn't. And so you get sort of wacky behavior with the program. Rust exists to make that a compile error. If you were to access something in a bad way, if you were to access, if you were to have two mutable references to a variable, then, or one immutable reference and a mutable reference, then you're going to get a compile error. So aside from that, it's really fast. It's got great functional language support, and it's overall a pretty nice language. The compile time's a little slow, but I get it. It's worth it for the features. By the way, this is stream is running with the assumption that you do know a little bit about programming. I apologize if I just jumped right in, and you don't. But I'm not going to go over the basics of programming. I'm just gonna, basically gonna go right in. So anyway, let's go into the actual program structure first. So you got this nice README. No one really cares. But let's just talk about how it's set up real quick. Everything's in a source folder, and then we've compartmentalized stuff that do different things. So we're going to go into the less exciting ones first, real quick, and then we're going to go into the game, and then finally we're going to start working on adding some features. So the first thing to look at is config. So we have this mod.rs is basically the entry point. If you're unaware, mod.rs is sort of an old school name for like the root in a module in Rust. This mod.rs could also, if I just go up two directories, if this mod.rs were a stats.rs right here, it would be the exact same thing. Sorry, if this mod.rs was a config.rs right here, it would be the exact same thing. I just keep it there for because it feels neater. So this whole file, we got some structs. No one really cares about those. They're structs. But what we end up doing is we parse the config, which we do have a config. Let me show you. This is an XDG DIRs, so config Typeracer, and then just config.toml. And this is, I have a very sparse config because I try to keep the defaults pretty sane, and actually basically what I prefer, but also pretty sane. I don't want to be too biased. You can see fuller examples of those configs if you go here. I'm going to go to the docs and config. And these are some docs on how the config is set up. So I'm not going to go into all of them, but you can see an example config right here with all of the possible parameters filled out. So you can set a repo for your language packs, repo version, history size. You can also blacklist certain language packs. So we have multiple language packs. So we do typeracer-s. You can see I have 3. We have the default Harry Potter and Smithsonian language packs. And then we also have these settings for always displaying borders and small borders, simple borders if you don't want colors to change. So I'm not going to go into what they all mean. But the gist is basically we parse the config, and if we get an error parsing it, we don't really expect an error, so we do print. But if we do get an error, which we assume might happen, we construct a default. We construct a default config, which is basically just absolutely nothing, and then we use all of the default parameters. So what we end up doing is we read in, so under normal behavior, we read in a config and we set the defaults to what we assume are defaults. If we have an error reading in a config, then we just set everything to the defaults. So a blank config really does specify parameters. It's just say use the defaults, please. And these are what the defaults are. So not too exciting. That's config. And then we're going to go into the structure of the other guys. We'll talk about this in a second. This is that newly added. This directories, this is where we specify all of the directories that we're working with. So in this case, this says, please get my project directories, and we want the data directory and the config directory for other stuff too, but only in this case. We only want the data directory for the stuff we're working with here, the setup directories. And that's where we end up having, where we end up storing our language pack and our small database. So I'll just actually, no, I should have gone there. So this is where we store our language packs. There isn't a whole lot to these. If you go in, we're just going to the default, you're gonna see a whole lot of randomly named files. So we're just gonna pick one. And hold on. Anything? Nah, cool. Okay. You can see that the file is really pretty boring. We got two lines. We got best of the enemy of good, which is the actual passage, and we got the author. And we can actually R 227. Let's see it in action. I should cat it out, not echo it. You can see it just works exactly as you'd expect. You'll notice we have the -r flag for taking in user input, and it specifies its user input. There's also one more data directory that we have too, but we need to finish passes first, so let's finish one. Fail to convince, and large examples are too big to follow. Finish passage. So you notice we got 82 words per minute. Error 10 combo. That is sort of my highest combo. That is the combo I had when I left. And accuracy 96. Not so great, but we're not trying to impress here. I'm just trying to. Oh, I'm running. Excuse me. I'm not running. So the last released version actually doesn't have this feature yet, but we added a feature in the last commit that stores data in a database so that we can show it in some graphs. All right, so 89 WPM, 7 error. That was probably my highest combo at 98%. And then we can do SQLite. Because I store all this stuff in SQLite. I got a stats database, and this is in the same directory as the language packs, or rather the same root directory. So language packs is just Typeracer/language packs. This is in statsdb. You can see we have some tables. See. Let's just make that a little bigger. So you can see passage stats. So this is the row ID. That's kind of like the primary key. We got the relative path of the passage we played. If we actually check that out real quick, we should see the Dr. Seuss. The Dr. Seuss pack. Share. Typeracer, Lang packs. Yeah, you can see Dr. Seuss is right here. So that's the exact one we just worked on. I believe this is words per minute. This is accuracy, highest combo. This is if instant death mode was toggled, and then one I played. So let's exit out of this. Let me out. Let me out. Okay. And while we're here, let's just quickly show off instant death. You can run with dash I, and then if you make a mistake, it instantly it's just over. So you'll notice the borders are also in anchor red. Let's see if I can. No. Anyway, we got a little off track here. Let's go back to the code walkthrough. So this is where our directories are set up. And then we have next what are, sorry, these two. So this Lang pack one, this is for, actually, let's not go into the render stuff first. So these two right here are just pure logic. They're pretty boring. Passage controller picks a random passage in that directory tree that I showed you earlier. If you go to back here, it picks a random file in one of any of the folders here, and it just returns it to the user. And stats is what records that WPM, that accuracy, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, those are the logic modules. Let's get into the stuff that's probably more exciting. And this is the stuff that ends up displaying stuff. So we're going to go into LangPack real quick because this is something that renders. So we get a display with it. And you'll notice with something that renders, I always have two files, two modules. One is the one with logic, the mod.rs, and one is the rendering file. This is what actually renders the display, what renders stuff that you see on the screen. So you'll see that we have this render function, and we just make a call to render when we want to render stuff. It takes a terminal. This is from TUI.rs to UI.rs. And then in the actual logic part, we do stuff like we download and check out the repo. This uses get2. It does a bunch of checks. But what we really care about is the rendering. And so you see we set up an alternate screen. We say we're going to use a Termion backend because this is a Linux house. We set up this result, which is, actually, why is it just set to OK? Interesting. It's not mutable, but I just set it to OK. Interesting. Do I use it anymore? Okay. Not certain why that's there. Anyway, we ask for standard in, and then we call the render function, and then after that, we this is where we update the display each time. So we run through and we update it a couple times. So you got to see that download screen, this. You see how it updates, and this is what updates it, and does stuff over time. So finally, we're going to go into the module that is the most exciting, the one where there's the vast majority of the logic, and this is the game module. And this has a whole lot of stuff in it. I'm not going to go into all of it because that's I got to save that for I got to document that another time. It's kind of a mess. Hold on one sec. Yeah. It's kind of a mess. But what we really care about, well, rather, let me go into the render module real quick. No, not the render module. I just want the main module. Let me go into the main module real quick, and let me just show the point where we care about. So what we're doing right now is we finished the game. So at this point, just take my word for it, we finished the game right here. And this is where we end up storing the stats, right? So we finish the game, we store the stats, and then we ask the user if they wanted to play again, or if they want to quit, or whatever else. Go to the next passage, previous passage, set up using this fun little enum. What we want to do is provide another shortcut, maybe like Control-I or something, to the user. And with that extra shortcut, we're able to show a bunch of different graphs to the user, their data over time. So we store the data, and we have it in SQL, and we have this fun GameDB module for storing. We're probably going to put some inserts in here. Sorry, we're probably going to put some selects in here, get the charts going, or I might put it in, I have to decide if I want to put it in here or another module. But anyway, so that's what's on the plate for today. So anyway, let's close this guy out. And we know a very light gist of what's going on. Let us go over what we actually want to get out of this today. Now, we're probably not going to get all of it. We're probably just going to get a graph. And that's probably going to be just a nice base graph. And I'll probably end up doing a little more either later today or tomorrow. But it's going to be more than 0. It's going to be a little something. So we want to make some charts. These are the charts that I had in mind. We want words per minute, accuracy, and combo over time, a line graph. And we're also going to include the average words per minute on the top or somewhere, or not really certain. We'll figure it out. We want words per minute for over passage size, accuracy over passage size, and combo over passage size, where the passage sizes are this. And we need to add some indices on the database to query on. And finally, this is what the controls are going to look like. So left and right to scroll between graphs. So graph 1, 2, 3, 4. And up and down to toggle instant death mode. So we show stats for if you're on instant death or not. That's the idea. So let's jump right into making it so that, well, so let's do this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up a keyboard shortcut to jump to the graphs. So actually the first thing we're really going to do is make a branch. Okay. And now that we got our branch, what we want to do is let us go into the game module. Okay. And we are going to add another shortcut around here. And another shortcut right above, because we specify this twice, because there are actions you can take in and out of the game that are different. So I'm thinking Control-S for stats, because Control-S is already a keyboard shortcut in the terminal, but it's pretty bad. It's to freeze the display. Most people don't really use it anymore. It mattered more when you're working on like a baud terminal. So I'm gonna make it S for stats. And I also want to make another action. What the hell are my actions? Let me just find actions. Actions. Where did I put it? Is it really main? Wait, where the hell did I put it? Oh yeah. Okay, well I thought I checked there. So we're gonna put it here. It's gonna be a top level enum. And we're going to next specify that this is where we want to go. I'm going to hit Control S, and we want to do that here too. Let's just put it in the same order. Okay. It doesn't like the comma. No, it does. And it's just being a little slow. Okay. So now that what we end up doing is we have this enum that will return to main, and then main is going to redirect us somewhere, but it has nowhere to redirect us right now. So we get all these actions, and we can do stuff with them, but we actually haven't specified how we want to handle it. So we have this action equals this. Yeah, I don't think I actually specified. How did I show the about page? I think I called it info. How did I show the about page? Source info mod.rs. Where do I inflate that? Info. Show info. Oh, do I just call it there? That's interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. But that probably makes it a little easier for me. The info page, by the way, just one more, is this page. So we're actually not going to make a new enum then. We're just going to keep previously what I did before. Although I'm starting to wonder if this is a bad strategy, if maybe I should invert control and send it back up. But then again, we can't let the user continue if we send it up to main, because we don't have any way of persisting this data. Because if we leave the function, then the user loses what part of the passage they're on. So let's not do that. Let's look at this show info function. Yeah, info show info. So we're going to make our own module. Okay, there's source. And we're going to call this stats. No, it's already stats. Let's call it graphs. Okay. And source graphs mod.rs. Okay. I just gotta go to the bathroom. I'm gonna pause. Be right back.